Now I'd like to invite Deirdre Cunningham to give us a bit more detail on the plan. Deirdre has worked with us and has facilitated the preparation of the plan in association with a company called Blackthorn Ecology. So I'd like to welcome our Heritage Officer, Deirdre Cunningham.
Thanks, Anne. Okay, well, I'm delighted to be here tonight at the launch of the plan. As was said, it's been we've been preparing this. I think it was 2016 we began preparation of the plan. So I suppose the Westport Biodiversity Plan is one of a series of biodiversity plans that we're preparing for towns and villages throughout the county. We're doing them in partnership with tidy towns groups and community groups because, as was said, the important thing about these plans is they actually get implemented. There's no point in having a plan sitting on a shelf if it's not going to be implemented. The biodiversity plans is an action of the County Mayor Heritage Plan, and they are funded jointly by the County Council and the Heritage Council. So, so I suppose the first thing that we've been doing, and we've been doing this since 2009, is mapping the habitat around in the towns and villages around the county. And then following on from that mapping, then we prepared the biodiversity management plan. So really, we map habitats, we map ecological corridors, we map kind of looking at stepping stones. So it's all about ecological connectivity in the towns and villages. So through the mapping process, then we can identify areas of importance for biodiversity, or areas that we would call local biodiversity areas. So these are areas that are of particular interest for a particular habitat or a particular species. And then within that, we identify areas that are important for biodiversity enhancement and opportunities that exist there for us to work with the communities or the landowners or whoever it is to look at those opportunities and see how we can enhance biodiversity. And then we identify particular projects that we can undertake to do that. And I suppose a big part of the plan then is raising awareness of biodiversity in the towns and villages that we're working in. So as I said, we map the habitats within the towns, and this is an example of a habitat map. This is the Westport habitat map. So as you can see, there's quite a large area of grey in the centre, and that represents built land and gardens, as you would expect, I suppose, in an urban area. So the categories down the side of the map there, they're the various habitat types, and that's done to a standardised procedure, a national standard. So the various classifications are standard throughout the country. So if this is done in a couple of years' time, we have a baseline with which to compare it. And then I suppose a big part of the plan then is what we've been looking at is green infrastructure. I suppose that's the services, the ecosystem services that are provided by the habitats in Westport. So things like productivity, whether that's agricultural land or forestry, recreation and amenity, or climate mitigation. So all of that then is I suppose overlain on the habitat map. And then, as I said, local biodiversity areas that are particularly important for particular habitats or species in the town. And in Westport, we identified 8 what we would call local biodiversity areas. And I suppose the first of those, Westport House, where we would have a lot of woodland, mature, I suppose, but non-native woodland, river and reed swamp. And I suppose within these local biodiversity areas, then there's potential to improve the habitats, or to enhance them or to protect them. Colonel's Wood and Kilmonagh wetlands, which I suppose all of these sites you're fairly familiar with. Again, we've just identified the habitats that are there and why they're important. And then, as I said, connectivity. So there's scope for improving ecological connectivity along the greenway here between the wood and the wetlands. So I suppose that's just to give an example of some of the biodiversity areas that are in the plan, and you'll see those when you have a look at the plan, but also then biodiversity management projects. And what we've done in the plan is suggested some biodiversity management projects, or things that the community can do in consultation with the local authority, or that groups like the Tidy Towns or the Edible Landscape, and all of those groups that we have been working with in preparing the plan. And as I said, these are particular projects, but there's quite a bit of detail within the plan on these and various management prescriptions, and then that can be adapted to other sites or other projects within the plan. So things like conserving the local biodiversity areas, enhancing nearby stepping stone habitats, or strengthening the ecological connectivity and the ecological corridors. We're also very cognizant of the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan that was published back in 2015, and I suppose some of the actions in there is about implementing that Pollinator Plan. And Simon is here, and he's going to give a demonstration later on. And then the other thing, as I said, is very important, the whole awareness thing and information. So within the plan, then there's areas where you can go to for further information. So we've picked, I think there's 18 projects in all, and some of them are site-specific and some of them are more generic, but they can be that can be replicated throughout the town. So one of the projects then focuses on Northwood and looking at conservation and enhancement within Northwood. So things like native tree and bluebell planting, erecting bat boxes, and controlling non-native invasive species. And then what we noticed a lot, that there was quite a bit of garden tipping going on in some of these sites, so really raising awareness of the negative impact of that. Along the pine woods, the wildflower, and promoting a wildflower and a bee bank there, so managing this area to promote wildflowers and as a nesting habitat then for the mining bees. So it's basically within this area, controlling the scrub and managing the vegetation. And then when we do that, then recording what's in the habitat. Rampart Wood, then again retain and promote the woodland and the Biodiversity Nature Reserve, undertake an ecological survey, and prepare a management plan for the site. And then it's really about monitoring the site, then looking for natural regeneration, and then removing any garden plants that are there in the spring. And then again, as I said, monitoring the regrowth, and again monitoring the garden waste tipping that's going on there. Roman Island, then another site that we focused on, basically grassland management to promote the wildflowers and the insect diversity, and maintaining the orchid habitat. That's a very important site here in the town. And basically again carrying out detailed botanical surveys and monitoring the diversity there. The Key Pond Parkland, then another site that we looked at, and I'm just going through these quite quickly, but there is more detail in the plan, and basically enhancing the biodiversity and amenity value of that site. Not doing anything too drastic to it, but just maybe reducing the mowing regime around the margins of the pond, and conscious that this is a recreation and amenity area, and maybe just introducing a bit more, I suppose, interest and diversity by possibly, planting groves of hawthorn trees, and then possibly some signage, just conscious that maybe a lot of people who use this, or tourists or whatever, wouldn't be aware of the value of this site. So really maybe looking at some non-intrusive signage explaining the wildlife of the area, but also Clew Bay, the importance of Clew Bay and the wider Clew Bay area and Clare Island, which are both sites that are protected under European legislation, and they're very important in the European context. And then again, working along the CARROW Bay River Walk, again raising awareness of biodiversity and controlling invasive plant species. And I suppose this is an area where there's Himalayan balsam, which is a non-native invasive species that's causing a lot of problems for biodiversity. And this is a project that could be very easily done through volunteers or through the schools, and it's something that we will probably look at doing in consultation with our local community water officer, Mick, who's here this evening. And then St Mary's present. I suppose we did look at a lot of these amenity grassland areas within the town, and looking at doing pollinator friendly planting, native shrub planting, looking at changing the management, the grassland management, the mowing regime in this site, and maybe looking at areas where we could have wildflower meadows. And then the fair green, you know, as I said, some of these projects will need a bit more, I suppose, a bit more thought before we would do anything. But it's in there as, you know, an area where we could potentially improve the biodiversity value of the site through I suppose minor interventions, conscious that a lot of thought went into how that site, how that area was laid out in the not too distant past. And then some other projects that are in there is things like woodland planting in some of the housing estates. Obviously we worked quite closely with the Edible Landscape project in preparing this plan, and unfortunately neither Christina nor Paula could make it this evening, but you know, expanding some of the edible landscape work and working with the schools, which will be a really important aspect of this, and the Westport College of Further Education. And then I suppose the council, you know, how the council manages their road verges. And we worked very closely with the council outdoor staff when we were putting this plan together. So and also the management in the municipal district. And then maybe looking at introducing something like a Best for Biodiversity estate competition. As you know, I suppose that could tie in quite nicely with the tidy towns. So at the beginning I just said, you know, we started the field survey and the plan preparation in 2016 and continued on through 2017. Some of you were here when we presented the draft plan in the summer of 2017, and the plan went on display. We presented the draft to the Westport Municipal District last month, and here we are launching the plan tonight. But I suppose, as I said, the important part of this plan will be the implementation, and you know, it's very important that we work very closely with the community, and you know, establish an implementation group maybe to work with the plan. So to work with putting the plan into practice. So if there's anybody here tonight who would like to get involved in that, I'd be very happy to take your details, and we would hope to organise a meeting come workshop in the next month or so. So I suppose just to thank again, just to thank the Tidy Towns, who have been very helpful in putting into the plan, with their very generous with their knowledge, and the Westport Civic Trust, also the Edible Landscape, and also, as I said, the staff in the municipal district, Porrick and Simon, and who worked very closely with us preparing the plan. So thank you.